Welcome to the podcast. We are not Gabe or Gabe. I'm Steve, and co-hosting with me is Brian. Excited to be here, and we are Brian. If you want to introduce yourself before we get going.
Yeah, Brian McFadden. I'm with Atonom and longtime sales.
Long-time listener, first-time caller?
Yeah, long-time listener, first-time caller. No, been in sales a long time and happy to be joining as a co-host of this podcast. I think we're going to have some fun and talk with some real strong candidates here for people who are candidate like you're running for president. People like Robert here who have had their hands in it for a long time and are just they are sales development minds and sales minds, and we're excited to talk with all of them.
Yeah, well, let's get right into it. Let's introduce Robert. I first met Robert about a month ago.
Yeah.
At an event, and you're talking about we were talking about AI and the SDR motion, and you raised your hand and made some comments, and then every time we've talked about your motion, what you're doing, I've gotten more and more excited. I've made that comment before, but yeah, let's rather than me kind of hack job at it, like why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are and what you're doing.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm excited to be on the podcast. I've been on a podcast maybe like once in my life, so this is a huge honor. I'm gonna tell my wife all about it after this. Be like, I was on a podcast. I'm famous now.
Right.
But no, so I'm Robert. So I run an agency called Rudiment. And for long story short, my experience is in sales. I spent like a decade in sales, and I've done everything from government contracting to agency sales to SaaS sales. And I was never, I think I was telling this to Steve and Gabe, but I was never someone that could convince a Tesla owner to get an oil change. I was not that crafty of a salesperson, but I loved systems. And I loved the system side of selling. And I figured out if you could develop systems that could get your prospect from intro to closed one, you could win. And so that's how I won in sales. And so I saw the landscape of sales shift before my eyes 3 years ago. And so I took a step back and launched Rudiment 2 years ago now. And so what we focus on is GTM engineering RevOps. And so we primarily connect data automation and execution into revenue motions, whether that's your outbound, your inbound, your data enrichment, your hygiene, things like that. So we have a lot of fun doing it. And we're in the weeds of go-to-market infrastructure every day. It's way fun.
Do you remember what that moment was where you had that click where it was like, hey, it's not sales, it's the systems and everything that really gets me more than anything else? What was that kind of did it for you?
Oh, that made me realize I love systems more than I love selling?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Oh, this is so funny, but I hated cold calling. I hated it. And it's so ironic because we have awesome cold calling motions for clients, but I didn't like it. I was just never that. It's so funny I say this because we have awesome outbound motions, but I was never invasive. Like I loved building relationships, and I was like, I don't really think I like this whole. You had to do it though, as an SDR and BDR, you had to do it. So I've had my experiences. I've earned my badges of honor, but I just realized that I love developing processes more because I was like, okay, I just talked to that person, and okay, I'm going to automate reconnecting with them in 3 days from now. They said no, so how can I re-engage with 30 days from now? And what can I do differently to re-engage with them? So I started building kind of those systems, and I was like, this is awesome. And I would just never forget, because to me, like, sales was always about having a diversified and resilient pipeline. When you're like a sales rep, like the worst thing to happen is having an empty pipeline. And so it's like, how could I keep my pipeline full, keep that going? And so I was like, I just created processes to do that and make genuine connections. And I just realized I was like, yeah, I want to develop systems and processes, and plus, like, working my way up to our director of business development, yeah, it's great, it's fun, but man, you spend like all your time just in meetings about what are we going to do here, we're going to do there. It's just like, let's just go close deals. Like that's what we need. We're having this meeting because we need to close deals, not talk about and whiteboard our ICP. Like, let's just go sell, and we'll figure it out along the way. So anyway, that was the moment for me. That's a long answer, but I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody has those moments where they go, "Oh, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to focus." And for me, that was when I met Steve. No, I'm just kidding.
Whoa, this
is breaking news.
I want to do what he does. No, I want to do what he does. But we had an opportunity to kind of get to know you a little bit better. You'd come in and spoken to Gabe and Steve primarily, and then we, just in a short call prepping for, having you come on the podcast, I got to learn a little bit more about you and was really impressed. And I wanted to kind of kick us off with that first question that Steve and I kind of were really wanting to ask you, which is, we kind of heard from you about the Rudiment thesis of the go-to-market infrastructure has to come before the AI, before the agents. So walk us through what that looks like. What happens when companies skip that step?
Yeah. Chaos. There we go. We can end the podcast now. No, but
scene.
Yeah. But really it's that. And so, to kind of dive into that and give context, what we've realized and noticed, and again, like everyone's adopting AI and we have to, like, it's just the way everything is moving, and we should be, like, AI is great and we should be using that. But what we notice is, like, for example, we've talked with so many people where they're like, hey, like, we need lead generation. Can we just build like an agent to just do all of our outbound for us and all this type of stuff? And my question is, okay, well, like, tell me your value prop. And it's like, well, our value prop is X, Y, and Z. And it's a little bit unclear. It's a little foggy. Okay, who's your ICP? Well, like, we know this is our ICP. And really what they're saying is, like, that's what they want their IC to be. So what they want their ICP to be. And so what they're doing is they're just trying to feed this agent, like, hey, here's our value prop. Here's who to go target. But what they're not understanding is who is currently paying you money for your services. Go look at closed won. Who is your ICP? Because everyone wants, and again, like, being in so many leadership positions, everyone wants the bullseye ICP. But if you start looking at closed won, you're like, okay, well, this is who is actually buying, and here's why they're buying. So an agent for an outbound is a good example to use that, but an agent for outbound is not going to fix a bad product or a bad value prop. It's not going to fix those things. Those things you have to understand first before you can deploy agent, because an agent, in my theory for something like outbound, should be helping replying to messages that are going out, should be helping for validating ICP and tiering and things like that. So we see it across the board, or even like, even in like just different, companies. Like my dad comes from my dad runs a boat manufacturing company, and so he builds aluminum vessels for the government and the military. And try telling someone like that you need to deploy agents into that, and they're like, "What do you mean agents?" Because they are so structured in their processes that they're like an agent, and mainly it's just because people don't understand the problem they're trying to solve. So infrastructure is so key. Like, do we even know what our channels are for selling? Where are we getting all of our revenue? How are we tracking attribution properly? How are we doing this? How are we doing that? How do we understand pass off to reps, things like that? So for me, it's really making sure that you have a foundation before you deploy agents, because you absolutely should deploy agents, but when it makes sense that the agents can help carry the load a little bit more, and like the term everyone uses, optimize, but basically just make everyone's life easier. Because I think if you add it before infrastructure, your life's going to be harder and not easier. And to me, AI is to make our life easier, in my opinion. So
talk a little bit about, I mean, I think one way to look at this is the name of the company.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the name of the company, and where that comes from and what that has to do with what we're talking about.
Yeah. So Rudiment is I'm a drummer. So rudiment, it means your rudiments, right? So it's a drumming term. And a rudiment is basically your fundamentals, your sticking patterns, right? So if anyone listening is a drummer, I know Steve is picking up the drums, but like a paradiddle is a rudiment, and it's a sticking pattern that makes certain musical notations or like a sound. So in order to be really good at drumming, you need to understand your rudiments, or your basics, your fundamentals, your foundations. And that's with anything within business. And that was for me, like on the sales side, growing up or at least like having a decade in sales, like building foundations first. And so the whole idea is that like I love drumming, and I basically failed high school because I would practice for like 4 hours a day for drumming. But it's because I wanted to be so good that I was putting in the work on the foundations, the fundamentals. And that's the same thing with business, with infrastructure, with sales. Like you've got to build off of the foundation. Otherwise, if you go to a newly poured cement and it's done wrong, it's cracking, then you're just trying to fill the cracks in the foundation, and that is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. There was a story that you told when we first met you. You raised your hand. Someone was asking something about personalization or something.
But yeah.
Share that a little bit, like what you guys are doing, like that type of stuff you're able to do and why it's able to work.
Yeah.
Where some people try this kind of stuff and it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can't because we're in strict NDAs. No, I'm just kidding. We can totally share that. So I'll share this. And it's funny because I remember being at the AI event and I forget who made the comment, but they're like, outbound email just does not work. And I was like, we've got some data to prove that wrong. And so I will use this case and I'll share my screen and walk through it. But to give context, that we're working with a company that does personalized like Lego kits for B2B companies. So you're a B2B company, SaaS, you're going to a trade show. How cool would it be to have a Lego set that has your logo on it that you could get out of a trade show or give to a enterprise deal that you're trying to work? So when we started working with them, and I'll share my screen here shortly, we started working with them and like their inbound was just doing so well. It was crushing. Everyone's dream scenario is having inbound leads, and it was doing so well. They were running paid ads, and their outbound was just this like ugly stepsister, like out in like some siloed area, right? It just was not converting. And so we're like, well, why is that? Like, you guys are selling Legos. If I got an email that says, hey, we could do a personalized Lego kit for your next trade show, I'd be like, heck yeah, because everyone loves Legos, right? But it was like bad. It was non-existent. So first things first, when we started going into there, we realized that they had no infrastructure. They were sending from their main domains, which is, anyone listening to this, don't do that for outbound. And so they were sending sequences from Apollo, which to me, in my opinion, I think Apollo is a great contact database tool. I don't think it's good for sequencing. So there's other tools out there. So we had to build outbound infrastructure, but we spent like 60 days actually analyzing their data. Like we went into all closed won. We figured out who was buying, why they were buying, and we went back and looked at every single inbound lead. And we saw a pattern that in the form submission, people would say, we love this Lego image on this page of your website. So then we had this hypothesis, which is what Rudiment is all about, which is connecting data, automation, and execution, like getting your channels to talk to each other. We're like, well, what if we could show like a customized Lego image through outbound email? And so I'll walk you through that process and what it looked like. So this is really cool. So basically, once we understood like, hey, mainly these are marketing managers, senior marketing people in their role, and we're using Clay as our data middleware piece for this to kind of organize our data and to deploy it to an outbound campaign. But once we found it, we've done some enrichment here where we've enriched the person, making sure that they're still current at the company. We've found the email. So we run like an email waterfall enrichment to find their email. We ran that through Bounce Band, which is another just step in our process to make sure, yes, we validated email. So you'll see this time and time again. If you're pulling emails from just one database, you should always verify it with a tool like Bounce Band because it will tell you if it's deliverable or not. What we do with waterfall enrichment is basically pull in from all data providers. And we have a lot of our own API keys with this so we can save on credits. But then result, good to go. If it's not good to go, it does not go into the campaign. So here's where it gets really fun. We've built all this fun prompting that connects to like our Claude or OpenAI API key. And we are creating an image prompt, and we are basically telling the prompt, once we feed it into Gemini, which you'll see is after everything, you're going to go to the website, and then you're going to come from go to these columns. You're going to say, hey, go to the image prompt and go to the website description review and generate an image. So what's happening with our Gemini is once we do that, we're extracting the company logo. We're doing deep research on the website, figuring out what they do, and then extracting their logo. And then we are creating a branded Lego image in real time for them. And we've had to
look at
fix
that.
this prompt a while, because when we first did it, the guys were like, dude, we can't make that. It's like way too, we had like pieces like floating in the air that just didn't make sense. Like, yeah, we can't like actually build that. So we had to refix the prompt over and over again to be like, okay, like if they saw this AI image, like the fulfillment side could actually like create this and actually like ship it out to them. And so if you go down this, like every single image is customized. Everything is unique to what the company does, right? So you keep going and everything is just unique about what they do. And this is focused on subscription and reoccurring companies. So the like 1,000 to 5,000 employees. And when we deploy it in the outbound campaign, all we're doing right here is pulling in these variables. So it looks like this, but when we preview it, this is the image that they're getting. Hey, Dave, been to your website, saw you help marketing. And we are simplifying personalization. The personalization is the Lego image. So again, keep it simple. We already have the personalization. Don't go crazy with all the text. Just say why you're reaching out, because that still works, right? If you've got good personalization and value prop, all we're saying, we've been to the website. We help marketing teams launch campaigns faster than traditional automation tools. Our business breaks, we make custom Lego kits that businesses use to connect with high value customers. I built an AI sketch representing X, Y, and Z. And then all we say is, what do you think? P.S. This is an AI image. Designs from our brick masters turn out even better. So we're not even saying like, hey, can we jump on a call when you buy this? We're just like, what do you like? We're like, dude, what do you think? Is this cool, or is this just the dumbest email you've ever received? And from the data, like we've tested so many different segments. And it's just converting like crazy. I feel like anyone with a pulse converts to this campaign, which is like,
what are the numbers?
Yeah. So reply rate, which to me, there's a huge debate. And I will say that reply rate is great to understand your deliverability and your messaging, but interested is the actual like lead. So your interested rate, your positive reply rate. So right now across the board, we're seeing an average of, without some use cases, like 5% reply rate and 50 to 60% positive reply rate. So after we've tested all of these, we've become so confident that we can now go to the company and say, hey, I think we can actually probably generate anywhere from 70 to 100 leads per month through this campaign. And so far the data is showing that. So the data the last 30 days, 3% reply rate, 141 leads, right? Or sorry, 141 replies and then 70 like leads. And they're like, hey, like this is awesome. Can we meet? Can we connect? Can we chat?
Wow.
So it's awesome because it's like, okay, like what we try to do at Rudiment is like, and how I think of go to market is, okay, like when you go to market, if you have a total addressable market and you have product market fit, this is going to be awesome, but there's like, we have to determine if you have a competition. So like, how can we be still like unique? Like, how can we be unique and be creative here? And so that's where now we're able to flow that back into HubSpot in real time, track the attribution. But now like we can retarget if those don't ever convert, like there can be retargeting. There's lots of just like motions to add on top of it. But yeah, this has been a fun one because it's been, how do we take some of your guys' chaos you've been having, which like there was chaos there. They had great revenue, great leads coming in, but let's structure some stuff and let's add another lead channel that's going to be outbound. And also like now things that we're trying to do is they're running ads. So now we're using tools to see who's clicking or having impression on ads, but not converting, AKA filling out a form and pushing that into an outbound motion. Right now, we're just be careful. We're not saying like, "Hey, we saw you clicked on an ad." We don't want to do that because actually they had a motion running with RB2B that basically was saying that, "Hey, thanks for visiting the website." And I'm like, "Buh, get out of here." That is like the worst thing to do. So instead, we just said, "Let's use RB2B to track website visitors and let's just reach out to them how we're doing it." And that one's converting as well. So anyway, that's one use case. It's been really fun.
Now I think some people would say that like, hey, just because. I mean, people are interested in this one because it's like, hey, who doesn't love Legos and who doesn't want to see their stuff in Legos, right? Like, everybody, like, it's like the new Wheaties. No one wants to be in a Wheaties box, but they wouldn't mind being in a Lego minifig. Yeah. So what are some of the other like ways? I mean, you mentioned recruiting, for example.
Yeah.
In that
recruiting
space, like some stuff that you're doing.
Yeah. So I think like, recruiting. Yeah. Well, I'm not a recruiter, so I can't speak to that because I'm not in the weeds of recruit. Well, I should be careful. We're in the weeds of doing outbound for recruiting, but recruiting is a really good use case. And I think there's other like companies that we're doing lots of go-to-market stuff for. But recruiting has been interesting because what we have found is there's been this play of like, okay, like let's just go figure out like open job roles. So let's go to LinkedIn and figure out all the job postings. But here's the problem with that is people in the companies, they leave it open. They forget to close it out half the time. If they post a job role on LinkedIn or Indeed, like half the time they haven't closed it out. And so we have so much data from like cold email. It's been like, oh yeah, we're actually not hiring for that role anymore. That was like last month. And we're like, whoa, okay. So anyway, we had to figure out, okay, well, how can we create, because recruiting is hiring and people want to hire fast. And so if you are the 10th recruiter, right, sending them an email and be like, hey, I saw you've got a job opening, we can do this. So then our thought process became, well, how can we find real-time signals of like people hiring? And so what we did there is we created this workflow, and it's pulling from either tools. We're using a tool called Trigify, or we're just using a tool called Appify. And what either of those tools are doing is we're able to scrape real-time things being said on social like LinkedIn or Reddit or all those other places, or X. And so LinkedIn has been a great place to not extract the job posting, but extract someone actually posting, hey, we are hiring an SDR at X company. If you know anyone, network, please DM me or have them, apply to the job in the comments below. So they're actually like posting the content. So what's happening here is we're pulling all this data in real time. And this is for a recruiting agency that specifically hires, helps tech companies place AEs, SDRs, or even larger roles. So hopefully this will get loaded up here pretty soon. Love that. Love that it's taking forever. Okay, right? Sweet. So what's happening is from the webhook. Oh, I know, right? From the webhook, what's happening is we are pulling in that real-time data. So you can see this started from February 7th. And so we're bringing in the author of the post and the post URL and the post date and the content. So here's what's really important about this process is we are plugging in, again, our API key with either OpenAI or Claude, and we're analyzing the content in real time. Because what we want to know is, does this content actually have hiring intent? Because we're pulling from keywords. We're pulling, hey, SDR, BDR, AE, VP of sales, and has to have hiring in it. So what you'll find sometimes is that content will be like, hey, if you're an SDR, here's how you can win using these 10 tactics. We definitely don't want to reach out to the person because we're going to look really bad. So it is measuring, yes, this has hiring intent, and here's the roles they're hiring for. So we make sure, yep, they have hiring intent, and it's a sales role that's detected, and then we start the enrichment process. So before we even do enrichment and find company information, we just want to make sure our data is correct and sound. So now we can go enrich the person, find the first name, last name, make sure they're still current at the company, because how embarrassing would it be to reach out to somebody, hey, I saw you're hiring, and they're like, yeah, I left that role like 2 months ago. Right. So we're making sure they're still current. We find their domain, and then we have some classification, and then we start enriching the company. We normalize their first name, because if we're going to do LinkedIn outreach, which I'll show you here, sometimes people put emojis in front of their name, so we don't want that emoji to show up because it's going to look automated. So we've got all this stuff here.
Bracket, first name, bracket.
Yeah. So we've got, this is good to go, like has hiring intent, it matches, and add it to the campaign. And so what this is doing, and again, this is where we are, we're not trying to be crazy with personalization, but we're still trying to be have some personalization. And here's what we did. What's happening is, let's say, for example, Brian just posted on LinkedIn, we want to add an SDR to our team. The motion goes into Hey Reach. And what it's doing is it's saying, hey, Brian, I just saw, first of all, thanks for connecting. I saw you're posting for X role, which is the variable. That's all it needs to be. We can totally help here. Ironically, I hate being sold to. Can I send over my one pager and you can determine if it's even worth a conversation? Because again, we have to put our minds in, and this is different. I would do it for different recruiting agencies, but since this is a sales recruiting agency selling to tech companies, reaching out to hire salespeople, they get pitched to every single day. So we have to put our minds, we have to human it a little bit, be human, be like, hey, they don't want to be pitched to. So let's just give them the pricing. Because that's, if I'm a VP of sales, I'm like, dude, I don't want to do a demo. Just tell me what the pricing is and I'll tell you if it's worth my time. VPs of sales do not have time to do demos. And if they do, then that's awesome. But I don't think they do.
Right.
So anyway, we push it into Hey Reach, and the last 3 months, this has generated 400K in pipeline for a company we work with called Confetti. I'm calling that out there because you don't believe me. You can go talk with Zan over at Confetti, but it's generated 400K in pipeline for them. Last quarter it did. It's closed revenue as well. And like, you can see, it's like, hey, the volume is not crazy. It's not like large. From like data, it's awesome. Yeah,
so it's not a massive spam.
No.
You're not like just sending it out to everybody.
Yeah, it's super intentional. And the data is awesome. 40% connection acceptance rate, like close to 30% reply rate. Interested leads of like 49. So we sent like 151 messages that replied. Out of those, we had close to 40% that were actual like good leads. And so what's great about this motion, and people are like, oh, well, like that seems too like small, but it's evergreen. Like we've been able to create an evergreen motion because it's listening to real-time stuff, because people are going to post all the time. We're looking for a sales rep. Like they're going to post that type of stuff. So now it's evergreen and now it runs, and now it allows us to focus on other like go-to-market initiatives and new creative things to do. But anyway, that's another use case of how we think of things.
Yeah.
You know, this has all been really interesting. And you mentioned something earlier about Apollo and not being a super fan or anything like that. I was wondering, just kind of, you've kind of shown us a few tools here, but, you know, LinkedIn, Apollo gets a lot of hot takes on LinkedIn. You actually run the tools. So where does Apollo break for Outbound, would you say? I'm sure people are interested in understanding maybe your distrust of it. Where do you find it breaking?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because, there is a lot of hot takes. Like, I think it is really interesting when I see a lot of people on LinkedIn be like, okay, Apollo is dead, like blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, like, first of all, Apollo, they're crushing it. Like, people are using the tool. They're doing something right. I've used Apollo way back in the day. So like there's a special place in my heart for Apollo. I think Apollo and a lot of tools, and it makes sense, are trying to be more of a batteries included tool, because Apollo has agentic workflows. They have their sequencer, they have signals, they have all this type of stuff. And why not? They have the data. They have so much data. But where I have found that Apollo has been so valuable for our team is they are really good at getting contact level data. So let me explain that. So what we find with data enrichment is that I'm looking for an email, and that email may be provided from a database provider like Apollo. But what I don't know for sure is if they're still at that company. And so I can layer on top other data enrichment tools that probably have more up-to-date information and say, hey, yes, I have the LinkedIn URL, because again, Apollo is a good contact database. Like, it gives you contact information. It gives you that LinkedIn URL. And if you have the LinkedIn URL, you can find the missing pieces. And so what we've been able to see is that, like, hey, we can find contacts via Apollo, because it time and time gives you the LinkedIn URL, and then we can go to other providers like Prospeo or Lead Magic to actually validate their email and see if they're still at the company. So where I feel, just personally, and maybe I'll get like chewed out for this one, I don't know, but I feel like Apollo wins time and time again as a contact database tool. Like it is so good for getting contact database information. But I feel like there's other tools that you need to layer on top of that to actually make sure the data is accurate. I don't know. I don't really think it's built for deliverability from like a sequencer, because there's other tools like, quite frankly, Smart Lead Instantly, or even our tool Email Bison. They do that really well. But I think if you are a startup and you are trying to validate your product and you're like, dude, we are strapped for cash, then by all means, go use Apollo. Just if you're going to run outbound from them, set up a ton of different domains and email accounts, so you're not using your main domain. But like there is still a ton of value. I think once you get to a certain place, you need to make sure you've got data enrichment systems.
Well, I mean, there's a ton you guys are running. I mean, you kept telling us story after story after story. If people want to talk to you more about what you're doing and see if you can help them out, where do they go? Where's the best place to find you?
Yeah. So basically MySpace and AOL Messenger. No, just kidding.
Friendster?
Yeah. So still on those platforms. Big user in MSN Messenger. No. What LinkedIn or website? Like if you go to our website, if it says book a call, it books a call directly with me, or even just connect with me on LinkedIn. Like connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a message, or even like I said, go to the website. You can just book a call, and always down to chat. I am the least pitchiest person on a sales call. I quite frankly hate doing that. I just like to share what's under the hood, what we're working on, and if we can add value.
Well, we will be sure and share your LinkedIn URL in the comments here in the description below, and then or reach out to us if you can't find it for some reason. Reach out to me and I'll help you find it. But Robert, thank you so much for hopping on. Hope to have you on again. And
for sure. This is awesome.
for sharing. Now I just need a minifig of Brian. That's all.
Yeah,
that's all I need.
You know, it'll probably be your least favorite.